And you're live.
All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for braving the snow and whatever else is happening to us tonight with this cold weather to get out here to our event. We really appreciate it. My name is Sarah Baker. I'm the Legislative and Policy Director with the ACLU of Missouri. I'm so glad I've gotten to meet some of you personally tonight. Tonight's speaker is MIchael Barrett. He's the Director of the Missouri State Public Defender System, which handles more than 75,000 criminal cases a year. A little busy. Michael comes to us after having served as senior counsel to two governors in New York in a position overseeing all criminal justice programming in New York State. I think very critically to this discussion, during his tenure, Michael was able to have crime go down across New York State, and at the same time, the state was able to close 5 prisons. And I think that's really critical to consider as we're in this moment in Missouri of talking about criminal justice reform that Michael will be speaking about tonight, with a bit of an angle on juvenile justice as well. In 2011, Michael came to Missouri and served as the Deputy General Counsel for Governor Jay Nixon, and he is the winner of the American Bar Association's 2017 Dorsey Award. So, Michael, thanks for being here tonight. I know I promised you I'd go through every single line. I'm sorry, I skipped a second.
Promise me this. You'll all get home safely.
Yeah.
I don't need that kind of guilt for the rest of my life.
Please note on the Facebook group that you have returned to your house and all as well.
Isn't this a metaphor for criminal justice? We have some hope, and then we get a setback, bad weather. This is the life of, there's people around the table that work in this field every single day. There's more losses than there are wins. If you can't take a blow like this, you're probably not built to make it in this type of field. I think it's important to kind of start off where everyone's on the same page, a premise, establish a premise, so we can go forward. Here's what I think the premise is. We got to have a goal for public safety and criminal justice. It's beyond the record. Here's what I think the goal should be. You let me know if I'm wrong. There's finite dollars, right? Just picture yourself going food shopping, right? You walk into the grocery store. You can't print money. You're going in there with a set dollar amount. You've got to squeeze as much public safety out of every single dollar you have without jeopardizing anyone's civil liberties or their constitutional rights. That is the formula for the fewest victims and the fewest number of people in the prisons. And that may seem very straightforward, but when you start considering all the things that we do and spend money on that yield no return on investment in terms of public safety, and the reason we funded it was because we've always funded it, or because it plays well in an election, it's absolutely astonishing. I don't know if anyone's a sports fan, but when I go in and turn on the TV and there's a game on that I didn't know was on in the middle of the second half or what have you, the first thing you do is what? You look at the score. First thing you do is you don't look at what uniforms they're wearing, you don't look at what play they're running, you don't know, see who's out on the field at that time, you look at the score. So that's what we're going to do. That's going to be the starting point for the discussion. How are we doing? How's Missouri doing? Okay? Now remember that the formula that I put forth is fewest victims, fewest number of people in prison. That's when you know you're doing it right. How are we doing on public safety? Terrible. Okay? Last year when I checked the FBI data, we were number 11 out of 50 states in violent crime. We were the only state, Missouri was the only state where 2 cities were in the top 10 for violent crime. St. Louis was number 1 for murder. Kansas City was number 10. I think Kansas City this year has fallen out of the top 10, 11, or 12. Okay? Some people may say, well, that's a city problem. Not so. We're the only state in America where we're on the top 10 list for violent crime at both the large city level, the medium city level with Springfield is in the top 10, and the small town level with Wellston is also in the top 10. Every single category, top 10 for violent crime. So we have a huge violent crime problem, okay? 8th highest rate of incarceration in America. Okay? If I had some sort of digital graphics, it would start with a globe, and I would tell you that America is the highest prison rate in the world. Okay? Now, even within that context, Missouri is the 8th highest. Does anybody know what where we're number one? What demographic we're number one in incarcerating in America? Anybody want to take a stab? Free wings to anyone who gets it right. Women. We are number one in incarcerating women in America. And I walk down the street all the time. Not once has a woman walked down the street and I've jumped out of the way scared for my life. Yet, we're number one in incarcerating women. So, 11th highest in violent crime, 8th highest in incarceration rate, number one for incarcerating women, Department of Corrections. Okay? Well, we're a fiscal conservative state. We don't like to spend money. We watch your taxpayer dollars. In 2006, this state spent $575 million on corrections. In just one decade, during which there was a recession, that jumped $150 million to $727 million, and it's gone up since. In a decade, they spent $150 additional million, and crime went up. It went up. It went up. And what happens during elections? They say public safety, I'm tough on crime, I'm gonna go like this. Okay? And no one knows the data. No one holds them accountable. And that's what goes on. Meanwhile, we pick up the newspaper and we see in Springfield rape kits sitting on a shelf, not processed. Violent crime clearance rates in St. Louis, terrible. Okay? This is what's going on. I think what's going on is that we are not focused on the crime that leads to victimization, and we're funding things that are going after the low-hanging fruit of people that are not victimizing others. So that's how we're doing in public safety, in the total. Let's see how we're doing on justice. Remember, okay, fewest victims, fewest people in prison. Department of Justice report out of St. Louis County 2 years ago. Systematically denying children. Okay, we're already locking up more women than any other state in America. Now the children, systematically denying children, particularly children of color, of their constitutional rights. Okay? The Supreme Court is so outraged by this that they put that report on the shelf and didn't do anything about it. We asked for more lawyers so that we can address the juvenile problem. Now, I just said $150 million for new prisons over a decade. The governor just got up and said, we need to keep people out of prison. We're not going to build any more prison. $475,000. That's the kind of money that is found in the seat cushions and sofas over in the Capitol. Veto by the governor. It's lawyers for children. Okay? Some of you might remember 2 years ago where 1 in 10 children in Missouri who were in preschool suspended from school. This is the beginning of the school to prison pipeline. 1 in 10. 1 in 10. Because the things that I did, and I was insane when I was a child, okay, that were kind of associated with youthful behavior, they're now locking people up for it. Okay? We had a child last year, West Plains. It's not a St. Louis issue or a Kansas City issue. West Plains, nice sleeping community, the bottom of the state. He's been picked on in school. And he wanted these bullies to leave him alone. So, as a last resort, he referenced Dad's firearm. Okay? That's what happened to him. He was arrested, charged with making a terrorist threat.
Right.
Okay? Okay? What's next? Every single year, Attorney General releases a report saying that people of color are pulled over at much higher rates and searched at much higher rates than anyone else. Then that report is put on the shelf right next to the Department of Justice juvenile report that says we systematically deny children their constitutional rights. No big deal. Just put it on the shelf with the rest of the reports. Okay? It's a little bit about us. Public defender system, great, dedicated, skilled lawyers. 49th worst funded system in the country. When you're home, Google these two data elements. Most violent crimes in America, most violent states in America, we get a top 10 list. Okay? And then least funded public defender systems in the country. Okay? There's a correlation. Okay? I'm not an economist, so I can't say that there's a dollar for dollar causation, but they're the same lists. There's the same lists. Okay? You have an artificially inflated prison population with high violent crime rates, and people who make up the prison population are 50% nonviolent. Something's not right there. Modern day debtor's prison. We're not a high tax state in Missouri. Okay, the death knell for any politician in the state is to suggest that we raise taxes even this much. So how are we getting by? Okay, in my home state of New York, there was 19 million people, big state, only 56 counties. And even there, the sentiment is we have too many damn counties. Here, by contrast, fewer than 6 million people and 116 counties. Whoa, do we have too many counties here? Okay? And so most of these counties, all but maybe 3 or 4 of them, don't have the local tax base to support their local jail. They love their local jail. So how are they going to fund it? Okay? We're going to pull people over not to protect public safety, because we're going to hold them up by their ankles and shake as many coins out of their pockets as possible. Okay? And for those who are charged with an offense, okay, some irony here, hashtag irony. We're going to set a bond, okay? I'm going to give everyone a primer on bond. There's some actual lawyers at the table who actually do this, so if I say any of this wrong, tell me later. But here's what bond is. We all hear about bond, cash bail, and then cash bail. Here's how I describe bond. When you're driving on a road trip, and you stop at that gas station that looks a little seemly from the road, and you need to use the bathroom, and they give you a bathroom key, and it's attached to a broom, okay? The reason it's attached to some preposterous thing like a broom is so you return the key, you come back, okay? They don't want you to stick that key in your pocket and drive off, okay? That's what bond is. Bond is meant for you to come back to court. The idea is that the court has something of value that belongs to you. You'll come back. But that is not how bond is used in our state, folks. Because if you go to get the jail population report of any county in this state, it will be full. And it will not be filled with people who have been convicted of crimes. It will be filled with people who have never been convicted of anything, but are waiting for their case to get resolved in court. Okay? Because they cannot make their bond amount. Okay? Okay? They cannot afford to get out. Okay? Now we get to the ironic part. Why is that? I'll go out on a limb and cynically say that when someone is incarcerated, the courts have a captive audience. And that building up the road, the Supreme Court issues time standards for how fast a judge has to resolve a case. And when a client is out and working with their lawyer, file motions and what have you, the case takes longer for that judge. When they're incarcerated, okay, they've got a captive audience, and that coerces plea bargains. Some of you may have heard someone say, people plead to crimes they never commit. And you're like, this is right to me. Every single day. Here's the reason. If I get incarcerated, believe me, there's a few judges in the state that love the honor. If I get incarcerated, I'm going to be okay. Here's why. Every 2 weeks, I get a direct deposit in my account. My bills are going to get paid direct deposit. I got some annual leave. It'll be okay. If I was a dishwasher, or if I worked at a car wash, or if I worked at any other hourly job, and I don't show up to work the next day, guess what happens? Then I can't pay for my apartment. And then a month later, I'm being evicted. Okay? And so someone who's jailed for just a couple of days is chomping at the bit to get out. Okay? But of course the court says, you want to get out? Plead guilty. Okay? Then we'll let you out. But they can't get out because they can't afford their bond. And here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. The state has the audacity to charge them, these same people who can't afford an attorney and the same people who cannot afford to post their own bond. They're too poor to get out, and they get charged for being too poor to get out, and then they have to pay $40 a day or $30 a day. Okay? And so the same Constitution that guarantees a trial by jury, we charge them. You want a jury trial? Okay? It's going to be a $4,000 or $5,000 bill in your local jail costs. Okay? You're up against that. Okay? And so then they get out, and the same person who can't afford an attorney, the same person who cannot afford to post bond, now has a bill of, let's just say, $3,500 a year in jail costs. And the court says, all right, your case is resolved, you're done, so this bill, and come back to court every month, first Wednesday of the month, to make your payment, okay? Well, this person's trying to, what employer lets everyone off the first, it's insane, it's insanity, okay? And inevitably, if the person's paying $25 a month, that person's gonna be coming back for a couple of years. And things happen, illnesses, loss of job, whatever it is, that person's not going to make every court appearance. What happens when they don't? Warrant. And the police go get them and put them back in jail, and guess what? Start accumulating more costs. Okay? Folks, criminal justice policy should be created to get you out of the criminal justice system. Not here. You get in, and if you're poor, you are getting out. It will suck you in. Okay? Okay? And it happens on the very first day when bail is determined. Creates two different systems of justice right off the bat. One trajectory for Darren, the junior MBA student at Mizzou, whose dad swoops in and pays his bail right away, and he comes back to court, nice captions and well-cooked hair, and then a letter from his professor telling him he's got a big future ahead of him, and he can't get a criminal conviction. He gets one outcome. And then there's Daryl, who worked as a dishwasher, not too far away from where Darren get arrested for the same thing. And he's got to sit in jail and wait a week or two to meet with his attorney, and he can't afford to post bond. He shows up in court with, hair's a mess and in a jumpsuit. Tell me they get the same justice. Tell me they get the same justice. Two different systems of justice. Keep in mind, we don't want less justice for Darren. We just want Daryl to get a bond. Okay? That's what it's about. Okay? So how is it that a state that has so many people in prison, $150 million new dollars over 10 years, everyone who gets elected says, I'm tough on crime. How is there on crime rate? How is that possible? Okay? Here's one of the issues. We're spending money politically and not in a very data-driven way. That's critical. I'll just talk about my home state, and then I'll realize that this is, we're not New York, and I'll move on to better examples, but I will talk about New York. Some of you are my contemporaries, some of you are a bit older, but this group of us understands or remembers when New York City was synonymous with violent crime, okay? It was the 80s, late 70s, 80s, and well into the 90s. The most dangerous city in America. 2,000 murders a year in the 5 boroughs. 2,000 murders a year, okay? I hear the rhetoric every day about society is deteriorating, people don't respect the law anymore. Okay, well then how did 2,000 murders in New York City drop to under 300 a year? 2,000 to under 300 for a city of 9 million people. How the heck did that happen? We looked at the data, okay? And we started doing things that were data-driven in the way we policed, and how we punished people proportionally, and did things so that people stopped committing crimes and started doing other things, okay? And we didn't use ideology, we didn't use slogans, okay? 2,000 murders a year down to under 300. Absolutely amazing, okay? So who's using all our dollars in Missouri? You need to know that, because we're spending plenty of dollars, unquestionable money. The issues in the cities, I would say, are are tied to policing, okay? Policing issues in the city leave a lot to be desired, okay? But some of the problem is when we talk about criminal justice, we should talk about that, but we neglect some other issue, and that is the rural areas of the state. Because I'll tell you, I'd rather be charged with armed robbery in Kansas City than possession of opioids with no priors in Lafayette County, or Saline County, or Pulaski County, because I'm going to prison for a really long time, okay? A really long time, okay? For that county, that rural county, who can't afford their jail, okay? That's what's driving a lot of this. They can't afford their jail. I'm going to sit in these jails, and let's just say if I have an attorney who has time to work on my case, let's just say I can expect to be in for 3 months before my case is resolved. But that's not the case because of our situation. So you're in there for about 7 or 8 months. Well, now the county is in a bit of a pickle, okay? And on the merits of the case, let's just say for the sake of argument, that the merits should suggest that the case should be resolved with a first-time nonviolent felony, low-level offense, maybe a fine, maybe a probation, okay? But here's the conversation at the Elks Lodge on Friday night between the county commissioner, the sheriff, and the judge. They're all enjoying their Bud Lights, and they say, we're into this guy for, $12,000, $16,000, and we need this money back. The only way that the state of Missouri reimburses the counties for their local jail costs is if the person goes to state prison. Okay. So we want to know how we're unique here in Missouri. I mentioned we're the only state that reimburses counties for pre-trial detention before they're even convicted of anything. But only there's a hook. There's an economic incentive for counties to send people to state prison. So if you're sitting back going, this does not pencil out. How are we elect all these tough on crime people, our violent crimes through the roof, and our prisons filled with these low-level, non-violent people from places we never heard of? It's this incentive that people only get money if we send people to state prison. So as taxpayers, you don't even have to be concerned about the criminal justice system. As taxpayers, you're getting hosed, okay? Okay? You're getting clobbered because of the $43 million for local jails. And then, because they're sending them to state prison, then you're paying for it again when you're housing them in state prison. Well, I gotta tell you, Mr. Barrett, I've got 3 kids and we live in a nice suburb, and I just want them safe, and I don't really care about how much money we spend in state prison. Okay, well, hold on to your hat, because I'm about to tell you something else. In 2006, the watermark for where I was starting with the DOC budget, okay, higher education in this state used to be 11 to 12% of the total state budget, okay? Corrections spending was about 5 to 6% of the total state budget. Well, when they added that extra $150 million over the last 10 years, the DOC budget became about now 10 to 11% of the total state budget. Well, since we don't coin money in Missouri, what do you think happened to that higher education, soccer mom? That higher education budget? Now it's below 10%, okay? It affects everyone. It affects everyone. Obviously, the liberty aspect is the most pressing thing, but these dollars are mutually exclusive. Every time we spend a new dollar on prison, it's coming from somewhere else. It's coming from somewhere else. Anybody asking where these dollars are coming from? This is the problem. Okay? It starts with bond practices, as I mentioned. Okay? It starts with bond practices. Today was the state of the judiciary. Okay? It sounded like I was up there speaking. If anyone listened to it, okay? We need to reform bonds. Okay? The laws on bond are fine. We need to have judges who are following the existing law. Okay? That's what it is. Ever heard of a bond schedule? Bond schedule. Let me tell you what a bond schedule is. It's written on a bar napkin somewhere, folks. Whatever the offense is, there's a line, and then it says what your bond amount is. Well, that right there violates the U.S. Constitution. bond is tied to the individual. If the individual is a threat to public safety, or if the individual is a flight risk, that's what the bond should be, not the charge. They can charge whatever they want. Okay? They can charge the Kennedy assassination. It doesn't matter. Okay? Okay? They're not following existing law. They don't need to reform anything. Okay? 3 hours ago, I have a saying, it's going to go on my gravestone. There are states that lead, there are states that follow, and there are states that get pulled into the present by federal courts. We're the last one. God bless federal courts. The Arch City Defenders sued St. Louis, probably the first or second best circuit in the state in terms of setting bond, right? Of all the 114, they're probably the ones that are close to getting it right. But they were the ones that got sued in the federal court 2 days later after it was filed. Okay? Injunction. Stop doing that. Set better bonds. Right away. Okay? They didn't need a change in the law. The chief judge of the Supreme Court said, reform's coming. We don't need reform. We need you to follow the existing law. Okay? That's what's going on. Fines and fees. Okay? Fines and fees. That individual I talked about earlier has got to come back to court. Okay? He's one example. And if I was tasked in a creative writing class with coming up with preposterous examples that would tug at our heartstrings, I can't compete with the actual examples. 18-year-old steals a lawnmower. Okay? He's 29, he's still coming back to court to make his payments. Okay? 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 And there's hundreds like him. Okay? I was going to read you all the fines and fees that people are assessed. But the program's only an hour, and I got 14 pages worth of fines and fees that are assessed. Okay? It would take you a summer as an intern to read and understand all these things. Okay? There is no way. I represented a guy who was brought up on probation violation. I think it was Pulaski County, I can't remember. He was put on probation, and it was restitution to what he owed the victim because of property damage. Okay? He had his drug treatment assessments and those costs. Then he had the court costs, and then he had supervision fee, and then what he had owed in jail costs. He worked 2 jobs, 50 hours a week. Okay? Couldn't afford a car. Got dinged on probation for missing probation because he didn't have a car, and if he got caught driving without a suspension, that would have been a separate one. And then ultimately violated from the inability to pay his fines and fees. Okay? How in the world did he have any hope at success? This is the problem. Hope cometh in the morning. There's good ideas out there. And we should applaud them. First, I'll applaud the legislature for a year and a half ago passing the expungement. I along with a few other defense counsels and also prosecutors, wrote a expungement bill that's actually pretty good. Okay, it's actually pretty good because the number of crimes that qualify for expungement in Missouri is probably the 5th most generous in the United States. Now, I didn't bring that up at the time of the negotiations because it would have sent us backwards. And I spent the time, probably over the summer and well into the fall, driving around the state and giving talks, much smaller than this one, places like Malden, just north of Arkansas, and in Mississippi County, and Springfield, Boone County, wherever, talking to people about expungement. And we are not talking about people who are criminals who are chomping at the bit to get out there and they just want this one off their record. I'm talking about people with gray hair, people with families, people who are of all different backgrounds, who want a little dignity back in their life, who committed an offense when they were in their 20s, and it's been 20 years, and they're terrified of trying to go back into court and try to get this expunged. So we're educating them on that. They need a little help getting back in court. So this is the problem. We've got the law in place, okay? But we just need to spread the word about it. So tell your friends, expungement, it's on the books, it's good. There's a number of proposals. Senator Kiki Curls has a proposal to expand it. It's got bipartisan support. We should do more about it. Because when someone is able to get a job, that is the number one thing in reducing the likelihood that they're going to recidivate. But irony again, okay? It's the criminal conviction that keeps them from getting the damn job, okay? Our policies should be set up to encourage people who want to be law-abiding citizens and contribute to the tax base to do so, not to prevent them from being a law-abiding citizen. So we need to do more in this area. Okay, some other bills. Representative Cody Smith from Carthage, who's now the House Budget Chair, great bill on reducing mandatory minimums. It's a no-brainer, folks. The hands should not be tied when a judge wants to give a certain sentence to say, I'd love you to make a compelling case as to why you should receive what your lawyer suggests. However, the state legislature, who's never met you, hasn't seen any of the evidence in this case, has tied our hands. Absolutely insane. Good bill.
Up for a hearing tomorrow.
Up for a hearing tomorrow. Is it really?
It is.
Okay, what time?
8 a.m.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm so sorry.
I haven't slept in days. Representative Roberts' bill to eliminate cash bail. Okay, something I call the Jamba Juice effect. I used to live in California when I was in the Army way back when, and there was this wonderful frozen juice place, Jamba Juice, and it was so good. And then I moved out of there and moved to the Midwest, and about 12 to 15 years later, it showed up. Okay, the same is true with effective criminal justice policy. It happens on the coast, and this is the worst thing in the world, and then 12 or 15 years later, it shows up. So it's like Jamba Juice. This is going to get here. It's just going to be a matter of time. So we're just like California. We're gonna take a run at eliminating cash bail. My favorite bill, and we're gonna get to the juvenile stuff. Okay, it's an under the radar bill, but boy is it important. Comes on the heels of that St. Louis County juvenile report. It said some horrible things, all true, about the court system. And they did 25 recommendations on how to reform and how to improve criminal justice for children. Okay. Now a little bit about let's just set the stage with some stuff about what these little children do that get us so riled up. 93% of 17-year-olds arrested in Missouri were accused of nonviolent or misdemeanor offenses. Okay, it's 97%. Well, that tracks kind of the knucklehead stuff that I did. It was never violent. It was just idiotic. Okay, 93%. Class A misdemeanors accounted for most of the law referrals in the system. Followed by B misdemeanors, 14%. 46% A misdemeanors, 14% B misdemeanors. When we're able to get a child into the juvenile, into the Department of Youth Services, okay, their recidivism rate, the rate at which they commit any further offenses, 13%. Okay? But when they go to state prison, their recidivism rate is 40%. 40%. Okay? Okay. With that backdrop, St. Louis County, like other counties in the state, they're the only ones that were investigated, systematically denying these kids anyone to advocate for them. And guess what? They want to stay prison. A lot of recommendations. The Supreme Court's nose is a little bit out of joint about this report. I asked for a meeting. I get the meeting. They're not loving it. So I'm not going to overwhelm them. I said there's a lot of recommendations here. I'm going to just advocate for one. Just one recommendation. Just one. Before a child can waive counseling, that child should be able to talk to counselor. Okay? And if the child still wants to waive counselor, that waiver needs to be on the record in front of the judge in language that child can understand. Because I'll tell you what's happening, and I'm going to do something right now that's going to break the law. Okay? I'm going to break the law because you're not supposed to talk about what goes on in juvenile proceedings because they're closed. And I'm going to. I was just handed a transcript today that shows what I've long known to be the case, that the laws that are designed to protect children are actually being used to hurt children. Well, how is that? Okay? Juvenile proceedings are closed. It's a closed door. You can't get into the courtroom, folks. Okay? Unlike our open adult system. And so we can't get in, so we don't know as lawyers what we don't know. Here's what goes on sometimes in those courtrooms. Okay? Judge up in black robe on that bench, 10-year-old. This was a case of a 10-year-old. Okay? Mom comes in. Mom's petrified. A lot of times uneducated, poor, and petrified. Okay? Son, we're gonna try to help your son today. You don't need any attorney, do you? You need an attorney? Have you had a chance to talk to your child about what happened today, why he was arrested? No, I haven't. Sorry, I got the phone call. I came down. Okay. Why don't you go ahead and talk to the child right now, in front of the judge? No counsel. Okay. The judge, using his power and his knowledge, just coerced mom into interrogating the kid on the court's behalf without an attorney present. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. These kids should have counsel. They should not be able to waive counsel until they talk to an attorney. Representative Ingrid Burnett's bill says, court's not going to do anything about this. I'm going to do something about it. We're going to pass a law that requires this. Great bill. And then last, I'll talk about Representative Justin Hill's efforts. Again, this is on both sides of the aisle, folks. The right Republicans and the right Democrats are both doing it. Okay, private probation, evildoers, absolutely evildoers. We're going to, okay, the idea, just like drug court, which can be both a good thing and a bad thing, depending how it's run. Okay. The argument for private probation, when the idea came about, is this person was going to local jail. You were judge. You were going to put this person in local jail as their case was going through the system. You don't need to do that. Send them to me, judge. I'll watch them. And then we'll make sure you know if they're showing up and they're doing their drug treatment. That's how it was supposed to happen. Here's how it actually happened. Yeah, it was net widening. They took people who used to be released on their own recognizance and come back to court on their own. Didn't need anybody. Now, because private probation is available, the court says, well, now you're going to go to them. And guess what happens? I'm going to paint with a broad brush here and say, not in all instances, but the great majority of instances, they're the most wonderful private probationer in the world, as long as those checks keep clearing, okay? But the minute those funds in their pockets dry up, okay? The minute those funds dry up, judge, it's just not, I don't think he's doing good. I think you're going to have to revoke him and put him in local jail, okay? It's a scheme. It's an absolute scheme that's endorsed by the courts, okay? And it needs to stop, okay? Well, what ideas do I have? I got some ideas. They don't need to be big picture ideas. They don't have to be West Coast, East Coast ideas where they have a lot of dollars to them. Because the wonderful thing about criminal justice is that the better approach, the more fair approach, the approach that gives you better outcomes, is actually the cheaper approach. Few areas, a few subjects where this is the case. It is in criminal justice. Okay. One, that $43 million we spend on local jails, can we do a lot of stuff with that? Stop incentivizing the locals from incarcerating people who've never been charged with offense. You can do all kinds of things. Just give us a piece of that. Just give me all 43 million. Just give me a piece of it. You can do all kinds of things. You can send the money out to the cities where you have a violent crime problem and do crime prevention. How about that for a novel idea? Crime prevention. Okay? All kinds of things. There's a reason why New York City brought its crime rate down from 2,000 murders a year to under 300. Okay? It wasn't because we locked up more people. We closed 5 prisons. Okay? So crime prevention strategies. But here's another idea. There's some lawyers at the table, and they're familiar with a phrase called indeterminate sentencing. Okay? Indeterminate sentencing is basically, you ever hear somebody, the phrase, he was sentenced to 5 to 15 years or 15 to 25 years, like, what the hell does that mean? Here's what it means. Judge sentences to a range, okay? Because the judge doesn't know how well the person will do on probation or in prison, it's largely up to them to a certain degree, I should say, okay? But we don't have indeterminate sentencing in Missouri for probationers. Here's what should happen. For a misdemeanor who's sentenced to probation, they should be sentenced to 1 to 3 years probation. For felony, 3 to 5 or 2 to 4, whatever it is, I don't care. But their first meeting with their probation officer should go like this. You're here for a minimum, 1 year, maximum of whatever it is, 4 years. Okay? Okay? We don't need to go back to the court. That's the range. We're gonna come up with a plan, and in 1 year, if I look in your folder and you don't have dirty urines, and you've got a job, you're paying your child support, you're going to treatment, you're not a problem. Why are we spending money on that? Goodbye. Goodbye. Here's what's wonderful about that. It creates an incentive to get off early. Okay? Now that probation officer is freed up from having to watch somebody they don't need to watch. And they can focus on people that are a problem. And let's just say we hit the year mark. They're doing B- work. They're not firing on all cylinders. Well, they say, well, here's the good, here's the bad, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to extend you another 6 months. Okay? And now there's yet another incentive for the behavior. Okay? This is something where we take our existing resources, get more mileage out of them, and create a system that's incentivized for good outcomes. Okay? We didn't need to move a mountain. I didn't need to spend an extra dollar. We just need to use our brains on that stuff. There's all kinds of opportunities. On the positive side, I walk around the building, and it's changed in the last 4 years. Okay? Had a lot of doors slammed in my face for a year or two. Okay? I'm being welcomed in, and they're very intent on what we have to say now. And so that's hopeful. There always seems to be a setback, and that's regrettable, but we got to keep pushing that rock up that hill. We don't know what it's going to take to get it over the top, but we got to keep pushing. So those are the numbers, those are the problems as I see it. I guess now we open it up for questions.
Yeah. Well, first I want to thank you
Yeah.
for sharing all of that information. We are going to open it up for questions. I thought I'd started off with something a little bit more personal than the numbers, and then everyone feel free to jump in, or a small group. I look forward to hearing your questions. So the first thing that came to mind when I was actually reading your biography and knowing some of your work and working with you in the Capitol, I wanted to know if there was one defendant who changed your life in terms of how you think about criminal justice. And I know in Missouri it's become numerous, but if you can recall what that moment was for you.
Yeah, there was a few along the way, and I'll give you 2 different examples. And this one was I used to be a public defender. It was one of my first legal jobs in New York. And there was right across from the courthouse. There was kind of a nice, low-income housing. It was nice, but you could tell it was starting to, take on a few years, and repairs weren't getting made. And I remember this young client of mine who was, I was sitting there, and I asked her what happened, and she said she went out to get the mail or to take a phone call. She left the place, she had a baby inside, and then she went back to get into her house. And the way that the house settled, the door jammed. Okay, she couldn't pull it. It had been a problem for a while. She couldn't get repaired. She couldn't get back in. She calls. Okay. I'm not living some fantasy. My wife was in that situation. Dun, 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 law enforcement to the rescue, right? They arrested her for endangering the welfare of a child. Okay. Now, this isn't a big thing you hear about on making a murder or whatever. This is just a little glimpse. But that instance, man, that's the tip of the iceberg. The other thing I would say is I had this law professor, and he used to say, it is impossible to drive from here to the mall without violating some provision of the traffic code. And we used to get a child. But that got me thinking that I don't know anybody who's never committed a felony. I've committed felonies, okay? And it's been very much a there but for the grace of God, go I. Okay? You want some drugs? Come to my fraternity house, folks. Come to my fraternity house. Hook you up. Okay? There's a nice buffer around my university that's basically a no police free zone. If I wanted to sell drugs, I got a nice house, go live in a cul-de-sac. I would just boop, boop, boop. Guy would come in, I would open up the garage door, he'd drive in, close the garage door, and make our little transaction, he'd drive off. Who'd know anything, right? Then people ask, why is the problem with the poverty thing? Why is it happening in the cities? Why is so much crime? I'll give you a shot. And I don't need to do any research. This is just common sense. Reality TV's all the rage. I remember the first reality show was called The Real World back in the day. Okay, here's the premise. We're gonna take a house and we're gonna shove a lot of people in there, okay? And we're gonna limit the resources and watch conflict, okay? And so I say that to say this. If you live in the city of St. Louis and mom and aunt and 5 kids or 4 kids are living in 500, 600 square feet, it pushes any activity, not just legal activity, out onto the street. And for police, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. So my fraternity brothers who are all mid-level managers right now at IBM and stuff like that, were they committing the same type of offenses? We know from the data that white middle-class people use narcotics at a higher rate than low-income people. They didn't get arrested, okay? It's the way people are policed. And when they're arrested, I have to tell you, just like in my Darren versus Daryl example, we don't assign our clients the same human value that we assign other people. We look at them and we say, your life is not worth the same as Jay Nixon's kid or Zell Fisher's kid who got arrested for committing a terrorist act in the state of Nebraska, and magically the case gets dismissed without any paperwork being filed a month later. Okay? Okay? We police people differently, and when they get arrested, we value them differently. I saw that day in and day out. Okay? And I'm not I don't have a tambourine, I don't have a hacky sack, all right? I have a few old Grateful Dead shirts, but I'm a former cop. I'm a former FBI guy. I'm a former Army guy, okay? I only came to see these things because I was involved as a player in the system. And I would have had to turn and put my head in the sand intentionally not to see these things. I'm not saying that there's an excuse. It's a society should excuse criminal behavior. What I'm saying is that the ones we punish, boy, their backgrounds look an awful lot the same. Okay? Awful lot the same. And I'm just saying we're in the business that we're in, not because, again, we're trying to decrease the justice for Darren, but we're trying to increase it for Darren. And that's been my experience.
I appreciate that. Anyone else at the table have questions they'd like to ask?
I have a question. In New York, are the judges elected or appointed or a combination?
So it's a little bit different at the appellate courts, but there's a lot. It's primarily elections. Courts. Elections are not ideal. A lot of money in New York, a lot of political party involvement in New York. It's not ideal, but that's how they do it.
Well, I ask that because I agree with everything you say and more. For example, it becomes a perfect storm when you have a client who cannot get out of jail and they're charged $45 a day seems to be the standard rate. And so the months go on, and all of a sudden there's an incentive, not only for the court, which I really have never seen that in action, that's some issue with the court, and I do know time standards play into that, but it becomes an incentive for the defendant to go to prison. I mean, it becomes the out solution because at some point And that's where it is perfectly a debtor's prison, not on the back end with probation and you couldn't pay and now you're on that slow track to prison. You're on the quick track to prison. So, I don't know what you do about that except for get rid of board bills. But I think that a huge issue, there are many judges who wish there was something else going to justice reform. We need a place for people that really don't belong in prison, but really are not manageable in the community because they keep running around doing criminal activity.
For sympathetic to certain judges who just get frustrated, absolutely frustrated. Put on probation, but you're not doing that, okay? You're not doing this.
Right.
I'm giving you all these chances. Here's my answer to that. I use this example a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to guess there's certain people at this table, including myself, who's got that idiot cousin, okay? They're not violent. They're just not a high performer, right? If he keeps a job 6 months out of a year, maybe go season, right? The fact that he's not committing new crimes, we should just be so thankful. And so to take these individuals, and it's like the old game shows for our departing contestants. If you're not given prison as a departing contestant, you get probation, and then we take someone where the judge has already made a determination. We don't need to send you to prison to keep society safe. We're going to put you on probation. We take this individual who's a knucklehead, who maybe does one or two things productive in their week, and now we give them 20 conditions of probation and say, good luck.
That's right.
And we know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen.
That's right.
And we have to give judges permission to get frustrated and not do it. Because it's an expensive response to getting frustrated and sending them to jail. The best example of this is criminal non-support.
Yes.
Okay?
Oh, I know.
Okay? If I don't pay a bill, I get a judgment and there's a lien against me, and that's a pain in the neck, and boy, do I want to get this lien cured up because it's affecting every aspect of my life. Well, if I don't pay my child support, it's a crime, a felony. Now, I can see how this is a frustration for judges, and not good for families, not good for children. Here's the problem. We're not distinguishing. There are two buckets of people here. The person goes, I'll be damned if I'm giving her any money. Okay? There's that person, and then there's no money to give you. We don't distinguish from them, right? We don't distinguish.
But I would say, unfortunately, in my experience, the person who says, by God, I'm not paying you, and I make a lot of money, you don't see those people in prison, because I've dealt with them, and I've dealt with the woman not getting paid, typically, but the payee not getting paid, and the person has money, and they can hire the lawyer, and they know the judge, and whatever. They never go to prison, whether that woman gets paid or not. But the poor person who simply cannot pay and who didn't pay attention when they got that notice, and they have 3 different child support orders, it's a nightmare. But that's exactly right.
So prison might be the right answer for a certain number of these individuals. Here's how to get them to the number. You've got to have some sort of determination on ability to pay. When their child support was set, it was based on maybe a job, maybe change in circumstances. We've got to go back to see what their circumstances are now. And when they go into jail, okay, here's one of the changes we made in New York. In New York, when you go into jail and you go child support, we toll the accumulation of the child support. So let's just say that they go into jail, prison or jail for 2 years, what have you, and that child support is accumulating. Now I come out, I didn't pay when it was $3,000, now I come out, it's $18,000. I'm never going to make a dent in that. I ain't going to pay a dime. I'm going to go underground. I'm not going to get a job, because if I do get a job, they're going to, go after my wages. And what is accomplished by this? The kid's not going to get any money. The taxpayer's going to put him in the pocket, and he's not going to get a job and contribute to the tax base. There's not one positive thing that's achieved by this. But we do it because we gave him a chance and he didn't learn his lesson. That's not even effective in raising children. That's not even effective raising children. Okay? This is not how we should be making our criminal justice decisions.
Well, my ultimate question is, how do you, I think the judges need education, is what I think, because what you're up against is a politician had their number one goal, I don't care who they are, what a great person, I don't care how good or bad, their number one goal is to maintain their position and to satisfy their constituency. And so, this education about the public, I never did, but I threaten, I need to put out an editorial in the local paper once a month or whatever about the cost of incarceration, because the minute something happens and that judge hasn't put that person in prison, when it comes time for election, they're in deep trouble over it. They answer to those things, and they're worried about their political career. So really, maybe it's the public is where that starts.
You're starting to see change on this. Here's what's happening, and it's a reason to lift your chin up. We do good work as public defenders, but prosecutors make the greatest impact on criminal justice policy. And in the past, people who would come to the ranks of defense counsel or be progressive-minded, they would never think of running for prosecutor. Okay? Then a couple of years ago, defense attorney in Philadelphia said, I don't run for prosecutor. They won. Okay? And then it started trickling down, even faster than the Jamba Juice effect, to St. Louis County, okay, and St. Louis City, okay? And so that's happening. One of the problems, and I'm going to be the lawyer for the prosecutor, one of the things that makes me sympathetic to prosecutors is the reason they focus on convictions is because the convictions is the only thing we measure, and that's what their opponent is going to talk about in the lesson. We need to measure other things besides convictions.
That's right.
Okay? The reason we have such bad relationships with law enforcement is because we measure them by arrests. Okay? Okay? Here's what I would do. I would do a policy in my police department that says you got to have 3 positive touches on a community member for every 1 negative touch. You got to fix the bike chain. You got to get kitty cat out of the tree. You got to play basketball for every arrest. Okay? Because every time you interact with somebody, it's an unfortunate situation. It's arrest, and so that leads to distrust. Okay? We need to measure the things we want, not just arrest. And I think when we change that, then we won't have scenarios where.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And actually, as I was writing testimony for Representative Smithville, that's coming up tomorrow, I was noting the prosecutor success has typically and historically been based on conviction rates. And then referencing what you were talking about was sort of reform-minded prosecutors coming into the field and hopefully reshaping some of those incentives. Angie?
I think some of the judges are hoping for attorneys to come up with alternate solutions as well, and they're just not hearing that sometimes.
That's right.
And so I had a case where a kid stole a $12 bottle of alcohol at Walmart, and he had 2 prior stealings for small stuff. Their offer was like 2 years DOC. So I went and got the figures of how much 2 years of DOC was going to cost a taxpayer versus this $12 bottle of alcohol. And I said, as a taxpayer myself, I don't want to pay for this kid to go to DOC. And I think when you start doing some of those things for the judges, and then you're saying this stuff in open court where other people are hearing this stuff, it starts them going, okay, well, maybe we should do this instead.
Yes, this is absolutely correct. Just like with bond decisions, judges are on the fence a lot of times. Okay, they are literally straddling the fence. Okay, and when they are not convinced, they are on the side of caution. Okay, and so here's what happens when we deliberately not talked about this, but we hit a point when we just had somebody that left us in Henry County. She's a wonderful attorney, but she had north of 200 cases. Okay, when you have that many cases, You can't make that call to the school. You can't make that call to the parents. You can't make that call to the pastor in the community. You can't come up with that plan, okay? You can't come up with that alternative. You can't do the extra thing that might fall under the social work. You really, the more clients you have, the more close you become to be a communicator of plea bargains, okay? And so when you have the time to do those extras, not inextricably legal things, other stuff, things you do on behalf of your clients. What teacher likes you? Who you have a good relationship with? Phone them, bring them down. You know, that is very compelling to a judge. Very compelling. Judge knows I have to make the argument. But when there's the youth basketball coach standing there in court, okay, with a whistle, that's very compelling. So I couldn't agree with you more. Problem is not having the time to do this.
Well, I mean, I even see private attorneys that don't take the time sometimes to do those things. Not just the public defender's office that's strapped.
Well, they're not doing a service to their clients.
Yeah, and I just think there are some judges in the community, and Cole County has pretty good ones. Usually give me some other options. And then there's your smaller counties that they would just rather send them to prison and get them out of jail.
Yeah.
We probably have time for one or two more questions if folks
I just want to introduce myself. Excuse me.
Sure.
My name is Tywin Lewis, and I'm locally running for mayor here in the city of Jefferson. My platform is unification for the sake of our children, and I say that basically the bigger issue is our homelessness issue, and so until we correct that, our families don't have a future. Okay, I myself and my children have been homeless for about a year and a half now. On and off. Had a house fire, still trying to recover. Excuse me. This weather's gotten to my voice here because I've been speaking a lot. But part of my platform as well is a mediation program. At the time of arrest, before the prosecutor, giving them an opportunity to be able to tell the truth. And so I thank you all for being able to hold this so early and happen to be in my campaign, because our youth are the future, okay? And if we don't pull together, regardless if we're Democrat, Republican, whatever we are, we got a problem for our future, okay? My first degree is in criminal justice. Personally, my little brother has been in and out of prison all of his life. It started with a ticket that never went away, basically. He's in the state of California now, lost, mentally ill, all these things that are going on. But our children are at stake. And if we don't come together, regardless of Democrat, Republican, organization, our future is in trouble. That's what I keep telling people. We might as well just throw our hats in now, because 10 years from now, the way the rate is going, children are not going to be able to be a lawyer. They're not going to be able to be a judge, because they're going to have backgrounds. And convicted felons cannot be, an attorney or be a judge or all these things that will help our actual future. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself. I thank you for your work, seriously. And our criminal justice system can be reformed. It's at the very beginning, at the time of our police having to make the arrest that they don't want to make that arrest, because no law enforcement officers, and they don't want to have to go in and arrest a woman that's on heroin, and she's depressed because she's homeless and lost her food stamps, or whatever may have happened because she got caught with a needle or something like that, and come and take her child. That right there, even if she's a minor or an adult, but from the time of arrest and before the prosecutor, or even before the prosecutor gets the actual case, a time that let's talk about it, because it's a bigger issue. And if people don't have, like you brought up the space issue, if people, I think it was a study done, family of four needs 2,000 square feet in order to live comfortably.
Yeah.
You understand? And if people don't have that, that's where the problem. And if you have an addiction problem, the first thing you're going to think about is going to go drink or do your drug or something of that sort. So basically, a mediation is an opportunity basically to get to the root of it before it gets.
They're doing that in a number of places. In Miami-Dade County, a child of a certain age gets arrested. police officer doesn't, they don't bring them to the police station. They
Right.
bring them to a facility where they get hooked up with the family up with resources. In certain jurisdictions in New York, we know the risk factors for likelihood of a child to go into incarceration. More than 21 truancies a year, one parent who's incarcerated, poverty, and the age at the time of their first offense. When they present 3 to 4 of those risk factors, there's like a 90% likelihood that they're going to bump into the criminal justice system. Why are we waiting? Get involved with them beforehand.
Right.
Okay? Okay? We're starting to figure these things out.
Right.
We're not going backwards. We're going
Right.
forward a little bit, but it's just taking a heck of a lot of time.
Right.
It'd be nice to educate youth too on what their rights are, because a lot of youth don't understand. You know, my kids do, because I tell them, if you're ever arrested, you better shut your mouth until your mother gets there. But a lot of kids don't understand that. They get arrested and the cops tell them, oh, just tell me everything and it'll be fine. And then you can go home, and they believe that.
I grew up in a youth court program. That was my first experience with the law, where if a kid does some vandalizing or breaks a window, he gets sent to youth court. They take high school students who sign up for this, and they train the kid. The local prosecutor in town teaches them what a prosecutor does. The judge does the same thing with another kid. The judge does the same thing with the defense attorney does the same thing. And they put the kid through the process there and taste what it's like. And then the student judge gives them community service or what have you. Okay? Everyone's learning there. And youth court was such a big program when I was growing up, and more places need it.
I have a couple of things. One is
Thank
I
you.
worked in a county where there were contract attorneys that were automatically assigned for juvenile cases. And I'm wondering if you have spoken with counties or the legislature or anybody about whether that's something that can be implemented statewide. And then 2, I want to know what you think in relation to some of the issues that you've discussed today, what you think ordinary citizens can do to help, and what you think lawyers can do to help.
Well, I think on the first thing is I know places like Springfield and a lot of other outstate places where they don't have the volume of juvenile offenses like in St. Louis and Kansas City. A local lawyer will handle all the juvenile cases by contract with the localities. The problem is we don't know where they are and who's doing what. And so there needs to be an accounting of who's doing these cases. And if it's a program that's working, we should look at the outcomes. We should replicate it. And they should be compared to the outcomes that our attorneys are getting when we have the juveniles in the cities. But I don't know enough about the outcomes to make a determination of whether it's a good thing to do or not. Paying a flat fee scares the heck out of me, because if I'm an attorney and I get a flat fee to do something, and I'm not going to get paid more for doing more work on the case, what's my incentive? So I got to know how they're being paid. What can lawyers do? I think it's they need to keep having conversations. Just keep talking to places like the Rotary Club, the American Legion. Minds are getting changed on this kind of stuff because everyone's got that crazy cousin, right? Where we're like, he's not bad, and then he went into the first. Okay, don't discount that. And I think the more you have these conversations, the more you recognize that there's common ground. And I don't care what brings people to the table, whether it's a do the right thing, whether it's a justice thing, or whether it's a we can't afford this kind of thing. 2008, recession hit. The state of Texas was poised to add 17,000 new beds to their prison system. They were really excited to add those new beds. They couldn't afford it. And then they started to do this kind of hippy-dippy stuff that they hate. Fast forward to today, when everyone was yelling, the sky's going to fall, crime's going to be rampant. Okay? Crime's gone down. They closed 2 prisons in Texas. Okay? I don't care what gets people at the table. I just care that they're at the table.
And on the advocacy side, I would also add, in addition to the lobby days that we have coming up, so the one on March 13th, which is general, and then we'll do one for youth later on in April. All of the knowledge around this table, I don't want to lose. You have the capacity to write op-eds. You have the capacity to share your story, to have more gatherings like this, and make sure that we're networking out further beyond this table, and so that more folks, particularly in this community that has such a seat next to Jefferson City, next to the Capitol, that we're making sure that this community is very educated and advocating and agitating to make sure that change occurs legislatively and that that education is happening. So I think, you know, there are a myriad of ways to get involved, and I hope that everyone kind of takes away from this I can do something about this. This doesn't have to be our tomorrow. Yes.
My name is Brandon. We're here in Michigan, homeless with that. So first I want to say thank you for using this as your platform to have your meeting. I appreciate that. I also have a question. It's referring to recidivism. Okay. I was also an inmate. Okay. Ironically, the ACLU was actually helped me in a way because I was a part of Missouri's inmate compact. They were sitting there for Texas. But ironically, you said in 2008 about Texas. I was housed in Texas.
Oh yeah.
Illegally. Okay.
Yeah.
We privatized you. We sent you.
Yes.
I was the first thing smoking outdoors.
Yeah.
All right. And I woke up, Rosebank, Texas. Didn't know how I got there.
Yeah.
Okay. No family. No windows in the place.
Yeah.
Okay. This is where I went. Okay. I knew something was wrong. I knew it wasn't right. And so I fought the entire time I was down there. I know I got punished. I know how I got treated. And I got my letters out to the ACLU, Quincy Troop, Mary Rice, and another organization. And they all teamed together, some lawyers. And we sued the Department of Corrections. Okay, and we won. Unfortunately, we were inmates. So we gave that money back because we were housed there. So it was a win-loss type thing. Okay, but on the records, it still went down as that we won and we were legally shipped across state lines. That's the closest you're going to get to slavery, what you saw there. Okay, snatch you out your sleep, put you on a bus. 16 hours later, you wake up somewhere. Okay, your family don't know, you have no contact. Okay, now, I'm not one of the normal inmates to leave, obviously. That's where I'm at. But that recidivism wasn't given to me. Okay, I took every program that they offered. I swear I did. And I was the front line. I just knew these programs would be getting me ready for the real world, you know. I went to prison, I was 16 years old. Okay, I was, they called me Big Youngster. I was the youngest one in the whole country. Okay, because during this time, I was really 16. Okay, I was smarter than the average 16, but I still was 16. Unfortunately, I was being treated like the hardened criminal that I was selling with, that I was next to. All right, and so, and I watched a lot of other guys that came in there, juveniles, that fell victim to it. Now they're really hard criminals. I see them today, in fact, if I'm lucky to see them. Okay, and they're really hard criminals, and they came in as innocent as.
They sent you off the criminal training camp.
No doubt. And so, but I knew that I had the mind that I fought, and so I educated myself, and so on and so on, and I got out. All right, I got out in a way that was non-traditional. I wasn't supposed to be home, and I got out in a way that made history. Okay, I got out with a basketball scholarship. And now, when I came home, I tried to put all these things that they gave me together. None of it works. Most of the information was outdated, had been outdated for years. Okay, a lot of the money that you thought was available, nowhere. I mean, it was heck trying to just get the emergency food stamps. I mean, I was legitimately homeless. Okay, I was no job. I was 34 at the time. So I spent more years in prison than I spent in the world. Okay, now mind you, when I went in, there was no cell phones, no laptops, none of that. When I went to prison, they still had the big phone, you know, and so I come home and they hand me this. I'm like, what is that? That's a cell phone. Really? This is real, people. I mean, and now mind you, I'm in college. I'm right up here in Lincoln. That's the scholarship. No more writing. When I went to prison, there was writing. There's no more writing. Now it's this. I never learned to use a computer. They never allowed me to see one, knowing that I was, even if I was at Alcoa, that means eventually I'm gonna come home, okay? And there was no preparation to survive here. It was almost inevitable that I come home and do what was expected, make a mistake. And because of my past, that mistake was gonna be magnified regardless because of who did it. Now, what I have a problem with is that I see so many, then I'm here in Jefferson City, I see the young guys get on the train. You know, they board the train to go home. I see a lot of that. I see them here and I get to see from the other side. And none of the guys really have the strong mindset that I had. I was unique. I know it now. Unfortunately, that's not common. And a lot of these guys are coming home with high hopes, high aspirations, but they're not being equipped for reality. Okay, my thing is there any way, form, or fashion that because the recidivism rate is still around 70% or something.
It depends.
Right? From
So
Missouri.
the standard way to measure it is rearrest within 2 years.
Right.
Okay, and so it's right at 50%. If you add a third year, it goes up to 70.
Okay.
Okay. Here's what's happened. It's not going to happen overnight. Okay. It used to be the rhetoric is there's good people and the bad people, and the bad people are just big crimes, we just keep them in prison. Here's what's changing that. Other states who don't believe that are doing things, and their recidivism rate is half that of Missouri. So I ran reentry services throughout New York State, and we had a 30% recidivism rate. Okay, and that's really good because reentry is hard. And so now places like Missouri have to account for themselves. But if you're just saying there's good people and bad people, why are these other states have much better reentry rates than you? Okay, well we're getting you job ready, getting you linked up with a job within the first month when you get out if you're job ready. And so then you're working for a group, you're sleeping for 8 hours, you're working for 8 hours, that leaves very little time. And when you have something to lose like a job, then you have something to lose. And you're less likely to commit an offense. So there are states that are doing much better on reentry. And I'll say this, DOC has a director who's doing the right things. She's got a big ship to turn around, but she's moving in the right direction. It's gonna be slow, but they're slowly figuring out. But there are states that are doing a lot of good work, and Missouri's not gonna have any choice but to either follow their lead or account for why they get such crappy results. So yeah, there's a lot to be done. Has a lot to do with jobs. And what you said has a lot to do with motivation.
I mean, even with my degrees, I completed college. I went through the Dean's List, everything. And I knew that this was going to change everything. Man, you stand a chance now. You know, you came home, you did everything they told you to do. You got education, you got off papers. Now you can get you a job. I couldn't even get a job over here at Emo. It hurt my feelings when a high school kid came through and carried a pizza box working on it. And I said, wait a minute, I got a degree and I can't even work here? And you got a high school look?
So we're just trying to solve it on the front end and the back end. Front end, you have places like St. Louis City and other places that ban the box. And the front end, don't even ask the question. We're also trying to do it in the back end. Earlier I talked about expungement for people who have, where a lot of time has passed since their last conviction. So again, we're moving in the direction so that you can get the job. Plus, we're educating employers on this stuff. But I'm finding people are getting out there, getting their jobs now, but they're not getting apartments. They have a hard time getting apartments than they are getting jobs. It's getting better, but it's not getting better fast enough for my liking. So I hear you.
Now,
Did you say it's called ban the box? What's the felony question? Okay, that's what I was trying to. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and conclude the event, but I thank you so much for bringing and sharing your story. Thank you all for braving the weather and for your wonderful hospitality here in this space.
Thank you.
Please get home safe. Feel free to post your Facebook group and let us know you did. Thank you.